Welcome to this episode of Kennedy Saves the World. And now it's time to save turkeys. This is one of Raymond Arroyo's Turnabout Tales, The Magnificent Mischief of Tad Lincoln. It is a phenomenal book. If you have children and you've read books or you just have read books to children, you will absolutely love this. If you have kids in your life who are of the age where they're still engaging in reading with parents, this is an amazing Thanksgiving book. Raymond Arroyo.
Kennedy.
This is Kennedy Saves the World.
When you invited me on this show, I thought this show is really about saving the world today because this book is really about family, letting kids be kids, and how that can save your life.
So it's great because, first of all, the illustrations, the writing is wonderful, as always, from this New York Times bestselling author.
Thank you.
But the illustrations by Jackie Davis are beautiful.
Gorgeous.
So you work together splendidly and really bring that era of the White House to life. But what was so fun for me as a parent is, you always imagine, what would I be like as president? But very few people imagine, what would I be like as a parent as president?
As president, right.
And the Lincolns really let their boys run wild in the White House.
Totally. I mean, they were building forts on the roof of the White House. They were digging up the rose gardens. There is a scene. All of this is historic. There's a great, and the early part of the book I love because it's such fun. The kids love it and laugh. And I consider these not picture books, Kennedy. They're family reads. I write them so families can read together because, as you know, you've read it. I'm writing at different levels. I'm writing for the child to have a wild ride and fun. I'm also writing for the child to be, because there are lessons here from history and from these people that are real that we can learn a lot from. You never see Abe Lincoln laughing. And that was part of the reason he let his sons run wild. It was his touchstone of joy and normalcy and light in the midst of a hellish war that he was running. As you mentioned earlier, he before we started, he had already buried a child before he got to the White House. He buries another in the White House. So he's left with Tad, his youngest son, and they become inseparable. So this is really that father-son story. My last Edison book was about how a mother saved her son. This is about how a son saves his father.
Truly.
Yeah, and it's really, and left us an enduring national holiday tradition that led me down this path from the beginning, the White House turkey pardon. I won't get too into it because I don't want to spoil it for people.
No, we don't want to spoil the ending.
Yeah, but
a turkey plays a pivotal role. But you tackle so much in the book. It's like, this sort of free-range parenting. The Civil War, the looming Civil War, and then the active Civil War. And we all know what Lincoln had on his shoulders and how re-election almost seemed impossible for him in a nation divided. And how do you parent when you've got so much focus going out the door? And on top of that, you have grief. And, we always think of the parents' grief, but we rarely talk about siblings.
No, and the child's grief. And what I loved about the story is, the whole era, and I read multiple biographies. I thought about doing this as a chapter book originally, but I thought it'll diminish my audience. More people will read it if I create a chapter book or a picture book around it. But, you have to winnow down the words. You work with the illustrator to create things that you can't say with words, and she did a beautiful job. But there were lines of people who would come every night, Kennedy, begging pardon of Lincoln during the Civil War for their sons who had abandoned the war or were deserters or something happened.
And his cabinet didn't like that.
They hated it. 82% of those pardons Lincoln granted, those pleas for pardon. Tad Lincoln at that time would rest on the floor playing and listening and watching his father doing this for hours on end. So he absorbed the lesson of mercy and forgiveness, even and hardship. He would often go pick people out of the line and bring them to his father in the middle of the day during cabinet meetings. So that lesson is really integral, not only to the national tradition father and son created together that they still do at the White House now. Thanksgiving. 1863 was the same year Lincoln created Thanksgiving as a national holiday.
And a lot of people don't know that. We
I
just
didn't
assumed,
know that.
in 1620 Thanksgiving was born before our nation. No, it was Lincoln.
It was Lincoln, and certainly hearkening back to the Pilgrims and the Indians and the founding and all of that. But it's not only giving Thanksgiving. Lincoln saw it, and I think for us today, with the divided nation, he saw it as begging forgiveness for the disunity we had created as a people. So it all comes, for me, writing it kind of all came together. Yeah. It all happened in the same year. Emancipation Proclamation, Gettysburg Address, the proclamation on Thanksgiving, and the turkey pardon all happens in 1863. Tad Lincoln is with his father throughout. And you know as a mother, the things you do on air, the things you do in your professional life, at times that's an outgrowth of what's happening at home.
Mm-hmm.
It inevitably is. It's who we are. When you look at the family story that filtered out and became the national story, it shows you the power of one child, even a child with a cleft palate who wasn't particularly great at school, who was pushed aside by a lot of people. Mm-hmm. The power of that child and the importance of that child in our national life and obviously in the life of the Lincolns.
Yes, and it gives some great reflection on Thanksgiving. It's a really wonderful book. Did Lincoln also create Black Friday?
No, he did not create Black Friday, but that Mary Todd Lincoln may have, though. Yeah. She was she was a big spender, liked to buy everything, decorate, throw parties until she went into a deep depression. She wanted those doorbusters. Oh, yeah. Oh, she was Miss Doorbuster. In fact, a lot of people criticized her for her gowns and the outfits and everything. But, I'll bet she had something to do with Black Friday.
Where do you think she sits on the podium or in the pantheon of other first ladies?
Where does Mary Todd Lincoln sit?
Because she's kind of a controversial figure.
She is a controversial figure,
I mean, she's a lightning rod like Hillary Clinton.
Yeah, well, Hillary Clinton was an activist in policy. She wasn't. Yeah. Mary Todd Lincoln really thought the first lady's role was to be a gracious host, create a beautiful home for her husband. Mm-hmm. That's what she focused on, both in Springfield and in Washington, D.C. And I think she was trying to be a good mother as well. Hillary Clinton, I'll let you reflect on that, where you think she fits in that pantheon. I don't know. My guess is, as a contributor to the nation, Mary Todd Lincoln didn't do a whole lot. I mean, Lady Bird Johnson gave us the flowers, and Michelle Obama gave us Let's Move. And, the first ladies since then have kind of felt they had to leave their mark. Mary Todd didn't have that kind of presumption.
No, her son helped her leave her mark in a mental asylum.
Right. He did. She was institutionalized. That's right. Yeah. She was institutionalized by a son. But
maybe that'll be your next children's book.
That's right. Mama goes to the magnificent incarceration of Mary Todd Lincoln. I'm writing that with Kennedy. We're announcing it for the first time right here on the podcast.
The sanatorium.
That's right. It'll be fantastic. No, but she gave birth to this incredible boy. She tried to be, I think, a good mother to her children until it was all too much for her.
Yeah.
And then
losing 3 kids, it's too much. I mean, it is what she went through is unimaginable, but it is the job of the storyteller to abstract a moment in time and a moment in their family. And you did such a beautiful job. The magnificent mischief of Tad Lincoln. So this is a wonderful Thanksgiving present for young readers and their families.
And the whole family. At RaymondArroyo.com, they can read all about it, get links there.
Can they get a signed book?
They might be able to get a signed book there, or Raymond, you could come to one of my signings.
Yes, absolutely.
In fact, and Kennedy will be joining me for all of those.
I will, and we're going to have a podcast next month about another exciting project of Raymond's, and I'm going to accompany him on one of his
Now that
excursions.
Is a must. I'm holding you to that.
Yeah, I absolutely will.
Should we give them a little tease?
A little tease,
a little teaser. I have a new Christmas CD, Christmas Merry and Bright. We'll talk about that next time.
I get to play Mary.
I'll be bright.
Okay,
no, you're definitely bright. I guess I'll just try to be cheerful. Okay.
You're amazing. Raymond, thank you so much for stopping by.
Thank you for having me.
You're the best.
Always a joy. Love being with you. Always.
I can't believe all that you do and making time for this. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, and I still hit the bar time with you every afternoon when I'm here, which is in a few hours.
A few minutes. This has been Kennedy Saves the World. Along with Raymond Arroyo, I'm Kennedy. Listen ad-free with a Fox News Podcast Plus subscription on Apple Podcasts, and Amazon Prime members can listen to this show ad-free on the Amazon Music app.
Oh, go ahead and leave me a review while you're there. I'd love to hear what you have to say. You've been listening to Kennedy Saves the World on the Fox News Podcast Network.